Impact Ripple podcast, the go-to source for hiring and leadership made simple, doable, and fun for visionary female business owners. I'm your host, Ashley Cox, author, certified HR expert, and founder of Sprout HR. And I believe that you don't have to change who you are to be a great leader, because you already are one. Join me as we kiss uncertainty and overwhelm goodbye and say hello to the tools and support you need to grow a profitable, sustainable, impactful team with more confidence and ease. On today's episode, I'm joined by the brilliant Dr. Carrie Graham for a deep dive conversation into best practices for training your growing team. Dr. Carrie Graham is an adult learning strategist and training consultant who helps businesses improve employee engagement in learning, information retention, and long-term skills application by developing a customized learning journey for employees and clients. She collaborates with executives to establish strategies that improve employee training outcomes, offering immediate solutions and 50% long-term improvement. In this episode, Carrie shares her philosophy around training, learning, and development. She breaks down some common mistakes, misunderstandings, and myths about training. And she shares how to create training with her signature 3-part approach, making it more effective, efficient, and full of ease for busy leaders. Because we know you don't have time to say the same thing 3 times. My favorite part of our conversation was our discussion around why engagement is more important than entertainment when creating and delivering training to your team, and what the difference is so that you can maximize your training efforts. Carrie's explanation is so good. You are definitely not going to want to miss this part of today's episode. Now, here's my conversation with Dr. Carrie Graham. Hey there, and welcome to the Impact Ripple, Carrie. Oh, I am so thrilled to have you on the show today. And thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Ashley, I am equally delighted to be here. It is such an honor, but more importantly, I think it's a joy. I'm excited for where our conversation is going to go. And, I'm confident that your listeners will get something out of it, but I'm ready to have a chat with you.
Yes, I have absolutely zero doubts whatsoever that people are going to walk away with so much value from our conversation today. So if you are listening, grab your notepad, grab your pen. You're probably going to want to take a lot of notes. And if you're walking and you're listening to this episode, because a lot of times I say, throw your earbuds in, go get you a little bit of, learning and development, then this may be an episode you want to come back and listen to again and again.
Yeah.
But Carrie and I met a few years ago, which feels like a lifetime, in this post-pandemic world and this weird time warp that we're in. And I tell you, we hit it off right away, didn't we, Carrie?
We really did. Even then, it was as if we had known each other for years.
For years. Like, we did not miss a beat. I think our first phone call or our first Zoom call was like 2 or 3 hours.
I think you might be right.
Yeah. And every time we've gotten on a call, we're like, we should just block a bunch of time because we're going to be here for a minute.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no 30-minute calls with us.
Yes.
None.
Yes, exactly. Well, except for maybe today's podcast recording. So that way you don't, you're not stuck here for 2 or 3 hours on the world's longest podcast episode listening. But we're going to really keep it to that like 30, 40 minutes today, but we're going to pack it with so much value that it's going to feel like it's 2 or 3 hours worth of content, I think.
I think so. And you and I will just continue the conversation offline. And if
exactly.
Needs to be a part 2, it's a part 2 for your people.
I mean, it could be a whole podcast season, but I digress. So I'm excited because Carrie and I have a shared background in training and development, but hers is a little bit deeper than mine. She's got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, a lot of training and education. And I'm so excited to be able to bring that to you as a visionary small woman business owner who's listening into this conversation today, because this is the level of of training and education that we don't always get as small business owners. You know, this is something that a lot of times folks who've been in corporate, like myself, you know, we spend a lot of time and a lot of money on training and development for people in corporate, and we don't have necessarily that same opportunity or access in the small business world. And so I'm thrilled to introduce Carrie to you as our listeners today because she's accessible for you. And I love that so much. So I'm excited to really just share your brilliance, Carrie, with our listeners today. So let's start off with an easy question.
Okay.
Or maybe it's not so easy, you know, because all of our journeys are a little winding to get to where we are. And I know that yours is no different. But tell us a little bit about your journey and how you came to be doing the work that you're doing today.
Yeah. So I'm going to go way back and say, and just remember this little tidbit. I was a really shy child,
Mm.
very shy. And I have a younger sister, 13 years younger. But so I basically was an only child. And that has helped me today. So moving forward, I have a professional background in healthcare as a healthcare provider for a number of years. And with that came training people and educating people on their bodies and the healing process. And then it turned into me being a faculty member. And that is where my true training came in terms of how do you set expectations, set goals and outcomes, and then what are the things that you need to do to meet them effectively and efficiently. And so, with the height of all of the global shutdowns, I left higher education and started consulting. And my PhD is specifically in adult learning and workplace learning. And so, I have a significant ear to not only the end user, so the learner, but also for those individuals who are attempting to support them.
Mm.
So I told you the little bit about my background growing up because one of the things that people that work with me often say is, Carrie, you're incredibly calm,
Mm.
incredibly calming, and you listen with such
Mm.
intention that whenever you ask a question or you're helping to explain something, it's as if you were inside of my brain. And to me, that's the greatest compliment ever. And I have to say, it lends back to when I was a child and listening, right? I was really shy, so I did a lot of listening. As a healthcare provider, I did a lot of listening and collecting information quickly to come to an accurate decision. And the same holds true in my work today. Is I can sense anxiety in my clients when they first come to me, on frustration. Why aren't my people doing what I want them to do? Why aren't um the people that signed up for my coaching program, why aren't they finishing it? So all of that, I listen with intention and with empathy to support them, but then it allows me the opportunity to provide really specific insight that's going to help their unique situation. So that's been my journey, and it has been incredible. Like, I love it.
Oh, I love that so much. There were some words that you used that I really want to just kind of call back. And I think that the first couple of words was that it's not just effective training, but it's efficient training. Can you say a little bit more about what you mean and why that was important that you used those two specific words?
Absolutely. So how I want people to think about this as a woman and as a business owner. How many times have you sat through a meeting, sat through a call, and you're thinking, this is time I can't get back, and it could have been in an email.
Mm-hmm.
That's that is not a good use of people's time. It's definitely increases waste and resources, and so efficiency is really important to me. What are the things? What information are you sharing that's extraneous that people can consume on their own and make sense of it? Versus what is the bulk? Where's the meat of the message that really needs you to be in front of and needs intentional construction?
I love that differentiation. It just keeps getting better and better every question, right? Every thing that you say, because now we have not only effective and efficient training, but now it's the differentiation between what do I need to actively be engaged in and what can I create a system or a tool or a resource perhaps? Is that kind
Yeah,
of the direction that you're going?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. And it's the world of a hack,
Mm, mhm,
world of an online hack. It's I can appreciate for small business owners how attractive it is. It appears that, when we look at hacks, right? That it will save me money, it will save me time, it will really get the job done. Some may, most may not. And I caution people into thinking, using that approach because as a small business owner, your resources are limited. And so if we're going to be efficient, we really have to hone in on the outcome. What is the outcome that we're trying to get? How can we get there quickly and effectively? And then the added part is we need to make it so rich that the outcomes are long term as opposed to short term.
mm. That's so good. That's
Mhm.
so good because we don't want to have to keep training
Yes.
on the same thing over and over and over again, because obviously that is not efficient. It's not a good use of your time as the business owner, the leader. And it's a waste of resources. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of brilliance that could be tapped into in every team member, not just the leader, but every single individual. So when we ramp up that learning runway and it's more effective, it's more efficient, it's more resourceful,
Mhm.
then we all win at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the thing, there's I liken it to talking to children, right? And it's sometimes you can say something to a child or a young person and they don't get it, but you are repeating yourself over and over and over again.
Mm,
And it takes someone else or you to change your approach, and that one time the message goes through. So that's an example of
mm,
where the efficiency of it and coupled with effectiveness, that's the way to go. That
mm,
is the way to go. It just has a greater impact. And it's not a way that a lot of people think, particularly about training. People often say, oh, more is better.
mm.
No, less is more. Less is definitely more.
Oh,
But
yes,
it's
that's so important. I think so many times we try to cram every single little thing. I call it the fire hose effect. Here's everything in my brain. Let me shoot it out at you as quickly as possible and with as much force as possible and pray to God that something sticks and I don't have to do this again.
yeah, and that's it in so many facets. That is an ineffective approach.
Mhm,
It's stress provoking for you as the
mhm,
person that's going to facilitate it, and that's a really special area of mine. But it's also like you're giving it all to
mhm,
everyone at the same time,
mm,
but you have individuals,
mm,
right? Like, okay, not everyone eats a bowl of peas out of a can. Yeah, we all might be hungry, but why would you serve up something and you don't know what allergies people have, what their interests are they even hungry?
mm.
It's the same thing. It really is the same thing.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So, kind of along this same vein, I'm feeling like we're starting to talk a little bit about, mistakes that people make or misunderstandings or maybe even myths about those all turned out to be M's. That was not planned. That worked out really well. I'm just gonna stop and give myself a kudo there. And I love alliteration, so that works really well for me. But like, what are some of the mistakes or misunderstandings or myths that people have about training? And it sounds like obviously pouring it all out, giving it all in the same serving size or the same serving of vegetable is definitely one of them. So, what are some other things that people can kind of be like, oh, I might be doing that.
Yeah, it's the one size fits all approach.
Mhm.
And it's easy to look at something online and or to purchase something from an external vendor, a training from an external vendor and say, "Okay, this is what we're going to use." And what it is in no way to say that that item or that product isn't quality or effective, but you are not making it fit. You're not
Mm.
working to make it fit for your particular audience. So I would say using a one size fits all approach is another is something else. The other part of it is to make a training about the content
Mm.
as opposed to about the individual. And this is something that I've been exploring more and more in the last 9 months, and it really is prevalent. It's a prevalent behavior that people will focus on. We have this governmental annual training that we have to do, sexual harassment training, let's say.
Mhm.
It's in order for us to get funding, we have to perform it. And so the training session is all about this is mandated. It's from the government. We have to do it to get funding. These are the definitions. This is an example of it, like in a vacuum. This is an example of it. This is the consequence. It's performative and
Mhm.
ineffective.
Mhm.
But if you take that same required training and say, okay, how can I make this fit for my people?
Mhm.
How can we get to the meat of the training through their lens, using their utensils? I'm a little hungry right now, so pardon me. Um, but it's that approach of not making it about the content. The content
Mm.
is what it is. If you've hired people, you've hired intelligent individuals, right?
Mhm.
So give them, acknowledge that part of it and then make it about them.
Mm. Ugh, I love that. I want everybody to just pause and let this sink in for a minute because we have this so backwards.
Yeah.
We have this so backwards. And I think it was perfect what you said that it's so often performative. We think about sexual harassment training. We think about anti discrimination training. We think about anything in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. It often is a checkbox
Yep.
training.
Yep.
I'm supposed to do this. I'm required to do this.
Mhm.
But what if you flip the script
Yep.
and it was a value driven conversation versus a requirement driven conversation? It can make all the difference in the way that people receive it, the way that they even show up
Absolutely.
to hear it, right? Because the way you show up to mandatory training is what? Ugh. See, you all can tell we're friends, right? Same response. But I bet that every single person listening had the same response. We've all sat in mandatory corporate training. I've had to deliver mandatory corporate training that was not given this kind of intentionality.
Right, right. And not only is it a drain on the learner, the end user, but it's a drain on the facilitator because
Oh,
actually I cannot imagine you were excited. We're gonna like everyone's gonna be so ready and motivated to no, literally every individual involved
mhm,
is dreading the experience. They are not focused
mhm,
intellectually from a heart perspective. It doesn't go well, but yet that is a practice that is continued to be used. And the
mhm,
other consequence of doing that is you have to repeat it
mhm,
because it doesn't stick. So
mhm,
now you have everyone is not doing their job because they're in the same training for the third time this year.
mm.
So
So
there's
true.
there's cost, there is a cost attached to inefficiency and ineffectiveness. And I get so angry when I hear that then this is from a corporate perspective,
Mhm,
but when budgets are being cut, it also it always typically starts with L&D or training. And for small businesses, it's the same thing. Yes, you have so many hats to wear in running your business. I beg of you, please do not, and I caution you,
Mhm.
do not put your training on the back burner because it will come around and it will bite you again and again and again.
Ugh, I could not agree more. Most of the issues that I see come up in my work with clients is around ineffective or non-existent
Yeah.
training. And it starts with orientation. It
Yes.
doesn't start once the person's been there 5 years.
Yes. 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 I recently was in a contract with someone with another agency, and I was going through their onboarding for all the like 100 contractors that they
Mhm.
hired. And I'm like, this is a multi-million dollar project, and this is how you are onboarding your consultants. Like, oh my goodness. So you're right. Like, it
Mhm.
happens at that level, and it also happens
Mhm.
at the local family run restaurant.
Yes.
You just need wait staff, so all you do is hire someone. You don't explain to them or share with them how the restaurant is connected to the community, how the people that are being served impact and support the business. Like, there is no conversation about that. Onboarding is a part of training. It's training the people about your culture.
Absolutely. And orientation is different than onboarding. And I don't think people understand that either. A lot of times people conflate the two terms to think, oh, it's the first week that someone's here. No, no, no. Orientation is the first day, maybe 2 days. Like, welcome to the company. We're so glad you're here. Onboarding is the ongoing training. And I always tell people, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, Carrie. Onboarding is a minimum of 3 months, 90 days, minimum. And it can go up to and should go up to about the first year because you can't experience everything in a company until you've been with the company for one full year because we don't do every single thing every single day or every single month or every single quarter in our businesses. And people need an opportunity to be able to see and experience that in order to learn it.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. You know, the other part of it is when business owners are questioning, they pose the question to themselves, I don't know if I should have hired that person. It may or may not be a good fit, but you're months in. And so, typically people they're hiring individuals with the mindset of this is permanent.
Hmm.
The individual will last the long haul with me. And that is absent of what you're suggesting. Let's do a full year of onboarding, not only for their benefit, the individual, but for your benefit, right? To
Mhm.
say, you know, I'm a small business, things may evolve. I might need to, as we grow, I might need to add things or take things away. Your strengths, they don't just pop up on day one. They
Mhm.
they start to present over time. And if they present over time, you should be supporting the individual over time.
Ugh, that's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And it really is something I come back to every single time is we're people working with people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like it really is that simple. We're people working with people. And while you may have been in your business for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, that person has not.
Yeah.
And have you ever started a new job? Do you remember how terrifying it is? It's like, oh my gosh, am I really cut out for this? Am I going to be a good fit? I hope I don't let people down. Like you're so nervous and you have so much to learn and to absorb. And if somebody is fire hosing you and
Yes.
they're creating a one size fits all approach and they're doing some of these things that we've talked about, they're speaking to the content and not the individual. All these brilliant things that Carrie's mentioned already. How can we expect them to be at their peak performance level if they're just overwhelmed and inundated with so much stress and information internally and externally?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I like to use myself as examples. You and I have been planning on having this recorded conversation for some time, and I woke up to some noise, and I'm like, "What is that?" And they're repaving my street. And so it was, okay, what do I do right now? How can I make sure I am prepared for our recorded conversation? That's problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
Problem solving is a form of learning. I've never in my life been in a situation where they're paving my street, literally right in front of my street. I've never had that experience. So that
Mm-hmm.
was a learning experience. So the same holds true in business when you're bringing people on. Things pop up that you may not have anticipated, and everyone is learning, how do we problem solve through this? It may, some people, when you're trying to problem solve, their stress levels go up. For others, um, they, the best of their personalities might not come out. And so it takes time. It just
Mm-hmm.
takes time. And you cannot, like you said, fire hose people and expect learning to still happen. It was like all the people who were in front of my house, they were so kind and they were moving kind of slow, and I was backing out, and they were like, "We'll stop for you, ma'am." Right? So
Mm-hmm.
everyone was calm. Everyone had a calm approach.
Mm-hmm.
It matters. That interpersonal relationship, it doesn't go out the window now that you're doing training. Like customer service, like you're helping other people.
Yes.
Training and development is the same thing. It is
Mm.
the same thing. It's all, to your point, it is all about the individual.
Exactly. And this is why it's so important not to wait to hire when you're completely overwhelmed
Yeah.
and overloaded in your business. You have got to have the space and time to invest in the people that you're bringing on. And honestly, you owe it to them. You're the one that has the business. You're the one that put the job posting out there. You're the one saying, hey, come over here. I'm going to give you some money in exchange for some work. And so at this point, like we have a deep seated responsibility and ownership to do our people justice, to do them right by taking the time necessary to slow down, prioritize, and deliver training that is intentionally designed to support that person in their new role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to bring it back to something I said earlier.
Mhm.
Yes, I was a really shy child, and when I stepped into the faculty position, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I was terrified. I was terrified." And I've presented at national and international conferences with, a couple hundred people in my session. That is not where I love to be.
Mm.
And so when I think about people who now have to facilitate a training, that's why I say it's something that I hold really dear to my heart, because it can be anxiety provoking, it can be
Mhm.
stressful. And even though you have the best of intentions, when it gets going, you're like, nope, nope, here's the fire hose. Like that
Mhm.
happens. And
Mhm.
so I also want to tell people, if that's you, or share with individuals that if that's you, when you make the training about them, it takes the focus off you.
Mm.
You don't have to be perfect, because you are not the spotlight. The spotlight is Ashley. Ashley, why don't you tell me about your experience, your past experience related to this particular topic? So and so, why don't you tell me? That's not about you.
Mhm.
That is about them and sharing their own experiences. So now you've got knowledge transfer in there, sharing their experience of saying, we did that before and it didn't work. And here's why it didn't work. So now you're getting an innovative approach to a problem that exists.
Mhm.
There are just so many benefits of being really intentional about your training programs.
Oh, I love that. And it feels so compassionate, right? It feels compassionate not only toward the individual that you're training, but it feels like self-compassion.
Yes, yes, and it's easy.
Mhm.
Actually, it is
Yeah.
easy. It is so
Mhm.
easy, and I take the approach of, I love to relax,
Mhm.
but I recognize, sometimes I have to work. But, you know, let's not shortchange effectiveness and efficiency, but let's make it easy. And so that's where having a clear strategy that fits your business,
Mm.
not everyone else's, but it fits your business and your business needs, it's a rinse and repeat because it's working, and it should be a cyclical process, and once it stops working or the outcomes are starting to decrease, it's an opportunity. Let's revisit what are some additional improvements we can make. And so it's that's easy as opposed to the stress. Oh my goodness, I have these 12 trainings that I have to give. Where am I going to get the time? No one's going to be interested. Now I got to have food because we'll be there for 5 hours when
Mm.
really it's only a 1 hour training.
Mm. Mm. So good. So good, Carrie. I think, it really lends to the business owner who is being kept up at night by this, right? It's almost like a sigh of relief just listening. Like it gets to be easy. It gets to be easy. It gets to be easy.
Yeah.
We're making this so much harder and more complicated. And so what are some things that business owners need to know about adult learners? Like what are we maybe missing the mark on? So obviously one of them sounds like listening to what the person needs.
Asking and then listening.
And not just like listening to respond, but listening to truly hear. What are
Yeah.
you saying? What are you needing?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say there's a couple tenets around adult learners that are it's well researched and backed in the academic and scholarly world. But I would say for your audience, the most important thing that you can leverage
Mm.
that is true about adult learners is that adult learners use their past experiences in I call it the learning table. So at the learning table.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is if you said, Carrie, I'm going to train you on a new technical system, computer system. My past experience is that I'm always frustrated, that I don't like it. Like it's not positive. So already I've come to the training session with some level of stress.
Mm.
And stress is a barrier to learn. It can be a barrier to learning. But there's also, once we're in a training, asking people about what their experiences are, they use it as a mental model. Oh, okay. So now Ashley wants to train me on how to, customer service or what have you. I love people. I love serving others. I have fond memories of it. Oh, you know what? I worked at a fast food restaurant growing up. Um, I can use I can leverage those skills to working in a five-star restaurant, right? So there's always a piece of a person's past
Mm.
that can help them not only be motivated, but it shortens their learning time. So I say that to offer when you're in a training, one of the things you can do is to ask, has anyone experienced this? What was your experience?
Mm.
Immediately, it takes the attention off you, it puts them on them. Everyone else is looking to them like, well, what was your experience? And if you open the table for discussion, hey, you know what? I had that same experience, right? Like it
Mm.
becomes fluid, um, it becomes easy. It becomes
Mm.
easy. So
And it
I
becomes more of a conversation
absolutely.
instead of I'm standing up here in the spotlight lecturing or, reading this well-scripted training document and feeling like the perspiration around my
Yeah.
brow and the racing heart and like everybody's looking at me to be the expert, to be the one that knows everything. But I love the beauty in broadening that and embracing every learner around the table, whether it's 1 or 5 or 25 or however many are sitting at your learning table, to say, let's all share
Yeah.
and let's benefit from that together.
Absolutely. And that is so much more meaningful. People, when you start having trainings similar to that,
Mhm.
people are excited for the next one. And even if they're not excited, they are engaged.
Mm. Mhm.
So that's the very first thing, tenet about adult learners that I would say, remember that. But
Mhm.
that leads me into the three things that I encourage people to focus on. And the first is engagement.
Mm.
It's really important to get your audience to be engaged in learning. That does not mean entertained. It means engaged.
Mhm.
Right? So you can play all the games you want, but that's not when the game is over, so is their level of engagement.
Mm.
So when you can engage people in a meaningful way through discussion, through sharing, through saying how it impacts them, that's the engagement piece. So if they're engaged, they're now motivated to learn. And that's where the understanding of content and retention of content comes into play. That's where all those strategies come in that we've been talking about,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
so how is the program or how is the training constructed to support learning for all the different individuals who are present? I'm going to argue that we please get away from, oh, well, there's auditory and there's written. Like, let's get away from that because that's not really helpful in this case. But rather, do you understand who your audience is? If you've got, mixed generations, you might need to review the basics of a concept
Mm.
and then build people's collective learning, going from basic to more complex. You want to do things that help people remember. And the reason is because we do what we remember. And
Mm.
that's the third piece of it. It's the application. And so are we just giving people the information and saying a prayer and hoping they go off and apply it accurately? Or are we providing them opportunities during the training to practice the application,
Mm.
to make corrections um, with their application? So I call it ERA, ERA. It's
Mm.
engagement, retention, but it's comprehension and retention,
Mhm.
and then application.
Oh, I love that. And it's so simple
Yeah,
in its execution. It's not rocket science. You
yeah,
don't have to have a $50 million training budget.
yeah.
Obviously, that would be nice,
That
but
would be good.
maybe unnecessary.
Yeah,
And I think it really sounds like it's about understanding your audience, like you said, asking and listening for what they need,
yeah.
engaging them in that conversation. And then, the follow up pieces, are they able to apply this? And I think to add something that I'm sure that you talk about as well is not making mistakes or failure wrong.
Yes, yes,
Because
yes.
I hear so many times from small businesses who are like, well, this person just can't get their job right. And I'm like, okay, tell me about it. What about their job are they not getting right? Well, I told them this thing that they had to do. Okay, how many times have they done it? Once, and they didn't do it right. And I'm like, that's not a lot of times. That's not a lot of times.
It's not.
Now, if they're doing it perpetually on and on and on over several months, there's a problem here. And I usually say, okay, so how did you initially teach this person how to do this? What was their experience with this? How have you followed up? What kind of conversations have you had? Training isn't just what happens in the moment of training. It's not just sitting at the learning table and saying, okay, here's the thing, but it's all the components that come before to set the person up for success, like you've talked about, and all the components that come after in the follow up and the retention and the making sure that we're supporting our people end to end.
Absolutely. Because if you give them what they need, not what you want them to have, not what you think they need,
Mm,
but if you're providing them with truly what it is that they need to do their job, they're gonna do their job.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's all it is. That's all it is.
Mhm.
It really, I don't like math, but it really is basic math. It really is basic math.
One and one is two.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Oh, Carrie, I feel like we could talk about this all day long. Um, and I wish that we could, but I definitely think maybe we'll have you come back for round two. Once folks have a chance to listen to this conversation, I'm sure there's going to be questions, there's going to be follow-ups, there's going to be, but how do you fill in the blank? And maybe we can go into some more specific examples and opportunities to really support people. But I'd love for you to share something, whether it's a reminder of something you've already shared or something new that you haven't shared for our listeners.
I would say the most meaningful, because you have a very busy audience. I would say engage, don't entertain, but truly engage from the heart. Support their level of retention through comprehension, and then support their application.
Ah, I love that. Imagine the impact that a truly supported employee could have on your business, your community, and our world. Oh my goodness. Such an amazing conversation, Carrie. Thank you so much for being here. I'd love for you to share with our listeners where they can connect with you to learn more, to possibly work with you. You're so brilliant. And I know that you have some incredible resources out there for folks.
You are so kind for having me, Ashley. Thank you. It truly is an honor to support women business owners that are listening in. It really touches my heart to know that you're doing that great work. And I am here to also support them. And so my website is the best place to learn more about me, as well as to access some resources.
Mm.
So it's Carriegraham.com. And I'm there. I'm ready to listen. My favorite thing, I'm ready to listen
I
and
love it.
peacefully listen and offer some support, because again, it's not about me. It's not about a one size fits all. I live my life by that. It is truly about you and what do you need.
Oh, I love that. Such a beautiful example of exactly what you teach, Carrie.
I try.
So we will be sure to drop Dr. Carrie Graham's information in the show notes for you so that you can easily click over and explore all of her amazing resources and connect with her as well on social media and all the places that she hangs out and shares so much value and information in this world. So thank you again, Carrie, for being here. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. It is absolutely such a gift to be able to share this type of training and information with the women out there who are pouring their hearts and souls into their businesses and deserve to have effective teams that they love working with. And thank you, dear leader, for tuning into our conversation today. I hope that you found it inspiring and helpful and easeful. Yes, so good. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you, Ashley, for having me. And to all of your listeners, please know that I'm cheering you on. Whether we connect or not, I am cheering for your success.
Oh, I love that. As always, it's an honor and a privilege to be here with and for you on your leadership journey.